sorted. Evening, folks. Thanks for coming in. Hope you're all enjoying the freezing. It was -6 this morning. -6 when I took the wee into school this morning. But tonight we were meant to be live on Monday night, but unfortunately the wee one wasn't well. So that's how we had to reschedule it for tonight. But you'll recognise this young man that I've got. He's been with us quite, I was going to say quite a few many times. That doesn't even make sense, does it? Quite a few many times. We have author, historian, tour guide, paranormal investigator. His list is like that, what this guy does. Mark Egerton. Good evening, young sir. Hi, Eileen. And there's the missus in as well.
Good evening, Scott.
So you're looking very well, young man. You've been out in the sun. Have you got sun in England or something?
No, all it's done here is rain. We've had constant rain for about a month.
Oh, sorry. There's. I said the missus. The missus is the same thing as the wife is. You know, it means the same thing. There's the wife in. That better be. That's me getting told that right away. I'll wear the same up here, buddy. I was talking to there's Laura in as well. Hi, doll. I was talking to a couple of the mums at school today, pick up time, and everybody's fed up with it. Every day it's the same. Do you know what I mean? It's dull. Yeah. I think we had sunshine on, what day is this? Monday, Wednesday, Monday. I think we had sunshine on Monday. And I'll show you how. Hi, Billy. I'll show you how bad it is. I've got solar lights in the garden and in the carport. Not one of them's charged. There's no bloody sun. But anyway, we didn't come on here to talk about the weather. So Mark has been with us quite a few times, and we're always talking different locations, the history and stuff. He's also the author of the Haunted History of Huntingdonshire. I got that right, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Aye. I usually mumble it up, folks, whenever I talk about it, but I usually get it back to front or upside down or something. But I got it right tonight. But tonight, this year he's celebrating 50 years in the paranormal. So that's quite, I'm not going to tell you his age, you know. I'm not going to give a gentleman never discusses his age. Isn't that right, Mark?
Yeah, I'm 65.
I was checking, I wasn't going to mention that. All right, he's 65. I was going to pay you 55 or something. But he's been in the paranormal for 50 years. And I know we always say there's no such thing as an expert in the paranormal, which there isn't. But I think Mark's as close as you're going to get to, I hate using the word expert, but I can't think of another word for him. There's no very much this guy.
To be honest, Scott, I think you're right, Scott. There are no experts. But probably what I have got more than a lot of other people is experience.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say.
I was 15 when I first got involved, hence 50 years I've been involved with it.
Well, we're 6 years. I mean, I've been out the paranormal all my life, but we've only been running paranormal history for it'll be 6 years come June, July time, just before the pandemic kicked off that we started that. Even Billy Boy, how he's waiting. Divine says she was coming on. There's our Laura in. Sorry, I'm late. I am late, Laura. Started nearly 4 minutes ago. Good evening to you both. Laura's one of ours. Aye, so what was I saying? Aye, so 50 years in the paranormal. Long time, a big milestone. As you say, there isn't any experts. We can have more experience than the guy next door. But, you know, see all these people, no doubt you've encountered them, Mark. They say, I'm an expert in this and an expert. Say, no, you're not. You know, you might know a lot about it, but bollocks, you're not an expert. You can't be an expert in a field that changes every day. That's my opinion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you the boring questions. How did it kick off for you? How did you get started as a young 15-year-old?
When it started, I wouldn't know what the word paranormal meant, or I'd never even heard the word, to be quite honest. I was probably about 2 miles from where I sit now. I have a friend called David Phelps, and he farms a place called Midlow, which nobody's heard of. There isn't a road sign for Midlow. It's a little hamlet at the back of the village that I live in. and he lived in a 16th century farmhouse. And I used to regularly go up to visit him. I used to cycle. It's about, I don't know, a mile and a half, 2 miles. And he'd got private roads and he'd got motorised go-karts. So you can imagine 15-year-old boys on private roads with go-karts and stuff.
Nice. Say no more.
We played football and cricket as well. And whenever I went up there, I used to cycle and I used to put my bicycle in a room. It was part of the house, but it was used like a shed. There was a door inside it that took you into the main house, but it was always locked. So there was an outside door into the house, and I always used to go in there, normally prop my bike up against sacks of seed potatoes, and that's where I'd leave it. And on this particular day, I'd done it numerous times. On this particular day, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, summer holidays, good weather, nice and light. And I went into the room, I propped my bicycle up, and as I came to walk towards the door in front of me, it was like walking into one of these walk-in freezers. The temperature changed quite dramatically. And as I said, I didn't know nothing about the paranormal. I didn't even know what the word existed. And I just, as I noticed this change in temperature, because it was a warm day outside, I looked over my right shoulder, and there was a little bit of an alcove in this room with rusty ovens where they used to cook their own bread in the farmhouse. And lo and behold, standing there, I saw what I can only describe as a monk. And I sort of looked and saw it, and then looked forward again, and it registered, well, what was that? And I looked back again, and there was this monk. He was in the habit and everything. All I could see was a white chin, and his hands were sort of crossed across his groin area. He didn't seem to have any recognition of me. It was as if I wasn't there. He didn't show any signs that he saw or knew me. And as I was sort of looking at him, and as I got to the door, I looked forward for the handle of the door. And when I looked back again, he was gone. So I probably saw him about 5 seconds maximum. So anyway, when I went out, my friend David, he could see that from my face that something had happened. And he said to me, I get called Edge. He said, "What's up, Edge?" I said, "Dave, you're not going to believe this. I've just seen a monk in your washroom." And I could tell by his face that he wasn't shocked. The first thing he said to me, I remember it vividly, was, "Don't tell Chris." Chris was his sister, Christine. She was 12, and he didn't want to frighten her. He then told me that there were indeed monks here. This had been a monastic farm in the sort of 10th and 11th century. Not too far away, there's an abbey called Ramsey Abbey, and they own it. And the name of the farm was Midlow Grange Farm. And I learned later, when I was researching my book, that the name Grange means monastic. And then he went on to tell me a number of experiences that he and his family had had on the farm. So bearing in mind, I thought I was in a 16th century farmhouse. I had no knowledge of the history of the land or anything. It was, I was quite excited. And so I rushed home to my mother, as you do, and told her what had happened. And she was really supportive. She said to me, "Don't be so bloody stupid, boy." and probably that would have been the end of it. But she had a sister who lived at Verwood in Dorset, right down in the south of England. And she was always on the phone to her, 2-3 hours at a time, near enough every night. And she was on the phone to Marilyn that night, and she said, "Oh, Mark reckons he's seen a ghost, idiot," and ridiculed me, basically. I didn't realise or know then, because, as I said, I didn't know what the paranormal was. But her husband was a guy called Trevor Kenward, and he was a long-term member of the Ghost Club. And not only that, his cousin was the Ghost Club president. His name was Peter Underwood. Underwood was president of the Ghost Club for about just over 30 years. So to cut a long story short, he basically brought his wife Marilyn, my mum's sister, up to see her mother where I live. Drove her up here to see her mother, my grandmother. And while they were here, Trevor took me away to a side room and basically interviewed me. He was used to interviewing people, and he believed me. And so I was sort of excited, and I wanted to get into it. And he said, well, you can't. He said, you're not old enough. You're 15. The Ghost Club at the time, it's different now. The Ghost Club is the oldest cyclical research organisation in the whole world. It was formed at Trinity College, Cambridge, which is about 18-20 miles from where I sit. And it was formed in about the early 1850s. And it was all university academics, professors and people like that, and celebrities. There were some very famous celebrities who were members. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, was a member. Charles Dickens was a member. These are sort of members over the years. There was an English Prime Minister as well, as I can't think of his name. If ever anybody watched the old Hammer horror movies with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing was a Ghost Club member. And it was no women were allowed to join. It was a very sort of posh, snobby organisation. Trevor had been educated at Oxford University, and I think because Peter was his cousin, he somehow wangled it so that Trevor got a membership. He was sort of passed off. Underwood wrote about 60 books on the paranormal, and my uncle is mentioned in a number of them because he was, on investigations with him, and he's mentioned as such. So that's really how it started. And I was allowed to do some research for my uncle. This was the days before the internet. So it was all going to libraries and looking through books, fairly boring, to be quite honest. And then when I was 18 in 1979, I did my very first paranormal investigation. I can tell you exactly when it was. It was the 17th of March, 1979. And I was 18 in the February, the month before. And the reason I know that date is because the particular alleged haunting, is supposed to be an anniversary haunting. It happens sort of once a year. So that's really when I was 18. And first of all, I hadn't got a driving license, so I did all my paranormal investigating by bus. I used to bus around. Huntingdonshire is not very big. It's 35 miles by 25 miles.
Well, that's nothing. That's about the size of your town. I'm going to stick this comment up for Laura, Mark. 2 seconds. One of the first paranormal experience I had, it was a monk I saw in broad daylight. First we were involved in I was a passenger in a car going up the busy street in Kilmarnock. That's where we live. At the top of the street was a clock, and I saw this monk in broad daylight tending the flowers around the clock. You see, that's the thing, people think spirit only appear at night.
Yes.
We've had this discussion before, Mark, and I've had this discussion with quite a few other people, and people think, oh well, night time, that's the only time the spirits come out, the ghosts come out, But it's 24/7. You see, you saw that one during the day, during the summer. Laura saw that one during the day. I know exactly what she's talking about, and it is one of the busiest bits of the town. So it can happen anytime.
Yeah, what's quite interesting is, like you said, you don't normally associate seeing ghosts with the day. We're talking about 50 years I've been doing this. That is the only full-bodied apparition I have ever seen. I have seen poltergeist activity quite a bit, and I've had people with me who've experienced it at the same time. So it's not a case of I've imagined it, but actually seeing a ghost, I think, is quite hard to do. Purely from the fact I've been trying to see another one for 50 years and haven't yet.
Well, you need to go to one of these shows. I'm not sure. I think there was a time as you know, we've been doing Lloyd and Cut for over 4 years. We did one of the investigations we did. I looked over to bushes, and I'll say I think I saw this little girl in there talking about seconds, if you even said 2 or 3 seconds, and then she was kind of peering out from behind this tree, kind of bush kind of thing, and then she was gone. Nobody else seen her. So I'm kind of 50. I'm not going to say, yes, I definitely seen, I'm kind of 50-50. Did I see? Because, you get the times where you might be right in the zone of investigation and your mind starts spinning and you think you see things or hear things, whatever. So I'm not 100%, I can't say 100% that I saw a little girl, but at the time, it did kind of, she caught my eye, but you're talking about 2 or 3 seconds. And she was gone again, So I mean, you're starting the paranormal. I mean, obviously 50 years ago, times were different then. These days, people just kind of start out and maybe start their own team or they'll go solos. You get quite a good start. And, the Ghost Club, as you were saying, its members, they weren't idiots.
Oh, no, no. They were all
educated people.
Yeah, they were Cambridge academics and celebrities. I've named a few of them that are perhaps more famous. But, it's very, very strange that, I've had periods of time in those 50 years when I can remember vividly when my 2 children were born. You go out and do a paranormal investigation, you get home in bed at 4 o'clock and you've got 2 kids jumping, daddy, get up. But what I did do is I've done sort of one investigation every year, I think. So, in the periods where I had a lull. I was also playing a lot of football and cricket, and that was really hard work because I was playing football and coming off the pitch at 5 and rushing around to get away to a paranormal investigation, and then you're up until 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's been hard, but I still find it interesting. I still find it fascinating.
It's fascinating, I mean, we've been doing this nearly 6 years, and we've done dozens upon dozens of investigations, mostly at Loudon, Caldwell also, and it is fascinating. People says to me, you go out and you can sit for 3 or 4 hours and get nothing. That's boring. But you try to explain them, it's no boring because you don't. One of the big things for me is, and I've said this many a time before on shows, is anticipation. You don't know what's going to happen.
I think it depends what sort of person you are, Scott. I mean, if you said to me, a friend of mine, he's into trains. He goes and stands by the side of railway tracks and train spots. That to me is boring, but to him it's quite exciting.
It's funny you say that. I'm originally from Glasgow. Total change of subject. Our show's kind of chop and change. I'm originally from Glasgow. You've heard the Central Station in Glasgow.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do it because I've not been in Central Station for many years, but I used to be quite regular on the trains there, and you would see the guys and they would have deck chairs and flasks and they'd be sitting there. And I used to wonder, what the hell? And I think it was my dad that told me one day, they write down the train number. No disrespect to them. That's their thing. They write down the train numbers, and I say, why?
Yeah.
But
it's
their thing.
It's whatever floats your boat, really. What some people like, other people hate, and that's just why we're humans and we're all different.
So I mean, you see, the paranormal. Some people might say it's boring. That's their point of view, and you need to respect everybody's point of view. I think even if you don't, you might not agree with it. I think they're talking crap or whatever. You just kind of smile and kind of nod, sort of thing. And you must have seen a big change over the last 50 years. I mean, I think in the last 10, 15 years, the paranormal communities, the whole thing's kind of came out more. There's more and more people into it. You must have seen a massive change.
I can honestly tell you, as a sportsman in my 20s, none of my teammates or that knew that what I did, because they would have absolutely ripped me to death. They'd have been going woo and stuff like that, if they knew what I got up to. But I have to say that at that time, the amount of people doing paranormal investigating was very few. You sort of more or less knew everybody. Probably there was a time when I probably knew everybody who was into it in the bottom half of England. And you got no internet and things like that to keep in touch with them, but there was just these sort of small, sort of concentrated body of people, where the paranormal now is huge. I'm in Hinchinbrook House this coming Saturday. Team from King's Lynn have haunted it, and I'm hosting them. Then the following week there's another one going in. They're from Bedford, and they're taking 30 people in at a time with them to make it affordable. And the demand and the excitement of the investigations is it's quite. I've been in Hinchinbrook House loads of times because I was at school there in the 70s. So and
that's like kind of second home to you, but
yeah, when I get asked back there to do a lot of stuff, because I know the history of the house, and there's 1,000 years of it, and I know the haunted history of the house, and I pretty much know the people who lived in it over, that obviously I don't know the names of it was a Benedictine priory, and I don't know the names of the nuns and that because it wasn't documented. But certainly, you've got the Cromwell family. When Henry VIII dissolved the monasteries, you had the Cromwell family go in there, and then they were replaced by a family called the Montagues, who were the Earls of Sandwich. So these are sort of high-ranked people. So there is records of who they were, what they did, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I've learned a lot about there. But I think probably, if I'm honest, the biggest change is the equipment that's used nowadays to how it was back in the 1979 when I did my first investigation.
So I was going to come to that. I put this comment off for Laura, which I think she's totally right. I think till you try something once, you can't make a judgment. I think that's because people say to me the paranormal is boring, blah blah blah. I said, well, why do you try it? Why don't you just go to one investigation, maybe yourself or with a wee local team, and see what it's like? You might not like it. You might like it. Who knows? We're not a tech team, as I've said to you many a time, Mark. Drop my bloody pen. But usually, going back, the 50 years, they didn't have all the gadgets that you do these days. What was kind of some of the stuff that you used back in the day, shall we say?
Well, I can remember that a meeting I had with Peter Underwood. It happened at the Anchor Hotel, which is not too far from me. It's now a sex club. It was a haunted hotel, and I spent a summer afternoon in the beer garden with Peter. And I thought, I'm going to learn as much as I can off this guy, because he's as near to an expert as you're ever going to get. And so I said to him, what should you take on a paranormal investigation? And I was thinking about equipment and stuff like that. Without hesitating, he said, people you can trust. That was the first thing he said. And it's so true. If you go to one of these commercial paranormal investigations and there's 30 people, 40 people there, and you don't know hardly any of them, how can you trust them? So my own little team, there's about 8 to 10 of us, and I know them and choose them carefully. When one leaves, I choose another very carefully, and I know that I can trust them, and you're right. A lot of times you go to investigations, nothing at all happens. I actually learned something I didn't do early on, because I guess I was a youth, was I didn't learn to appreciate some of the buildings that I went in. when I go into places like Hinchinbrook now, you know, it's best part of 1,000 years old, I can appreciate it. Whereas I wasn't interested in the building, I was just interested in seeing ghosts. In the early years, I'm talking about probably early 80s. I got no interest at all in what the building looked like or anything like that. Obviously, you can get a building and it looks spooky, so that makes it attractive. But yeah, I didn't really appreciate it. And of course, once you do appreciate the building, and I don't like to use the word ghost hunting, and that's not snobbery, but I was taught that it's a paranormal investigator, and you investigate the paranormal like a policeman would investigate a crime. So you have to take what you've got there and, you know, in the way of evidence, and basically work through it, debunk some of it, and so on and so forth. And if you do that thoroughly, what you're left with at the end is probably the truth. So
no, you're totally right.
Yeah,
I hate the words ghost hunting as well, because when you say ghost hunting, you get this image of a wee guy who's on the book with a torch and a big net. You know,
what it always does to me, Scott, it gives me the impression that you say ghost hunting, you're hunting for ghosts, and you're going to see a ghost. And as I said to you earlier, in those 50 years, I've only seen that one, and that was in 1976. You know, I have witnessed a lot of freaky stuff, but if I analyse it, you'd have to say, well, that's poltergeist activity. That's not, you know, a full-bodied apparition.
Just get back to what you were saying about you need to appreciate the buildings. I totally agree with that. You need to appreciate, because, you know, we've been in some buildings, you know, like Tower of London, Hampton Court Palace, you know, and there's places up here, Huntingdon Castle, there's loads of them that we've been in, and you walk in and some people might say, all right, this is big, you know, this is nice, but I think you need to stop and you need to take a good look around, and you need to think, well, I wonder many people have walked through these doors, and then you think, how did they build it? I mean, some of the buildings these days, you know, they date back to the 1600s, and you think some of them were ingenious how they actually built it. And these people weren't the brightest people on the planet, no disrespect them, but
the thing that always,
the buildings, you know.
Yeah, the thing that strikes me, the buildings that strike me more than any are cathedrals. If you go into a cathedral and you look up at the roof, and you bear in mind that when they were built, you know, you were building without a plan as such, and you know, you're probably building at one end of the building and another end, and they meet perfectly, or near enough perfectly, in the middle of that. I mean, it's astounding. But getting back to your original question, you'll have a laugh at this, at what equipment, you know, was first used around the 70s, 80s. There used to be things like flour. People would put flour on the floor to see whether there was footprints, or to make sure that nobody had actually entered a room and stuff like that. You know, the pretty much normal. A camera was always a must-do, and you know, the old days cameras, not the sort of cameras you get on your phone that really take fantastic pictures at night. So there was all sorts of different things that you could do. Tape, a lot of taping up doors so you could see whether anyone had gone into that room. You know, you'd tape the door off and stuff like that. So yeah, it was pretty primitive.
But you know, it was pretty primitive. But if you, I mean, these days we're not a big tech team, because you know we believe spirit's basic. No, I don't mean that in a bad way. You know, spirit, to me, spirit doesn't care if you've got a £500 camera or a 30p ping pong ball, as I've always said. You know, and you know, back then people used these basic, simple methods, and they worked. You know, they worked perfectly well. I mean, we've tried a compass, you know, it didn't work, but who's to say it won't work in the future? One time I got an old T-shirt and a bit of clothesline, and I cut the T-shirt into strips. You can only do this indoors, and I hung it up a kind of washing line sort of thing, and I put a candle underneath it and lit the candle, and the whole idea was that I would ask spirit to move, one of the bits of material. And the idea of the candle was that if the material moved and the candle still burnt through, then you knew it wasn't a draft.
Yeah,
basically. And it's simple things like that. Understanding what life was back then gives you a better insight of the people who may still haunt. And that's true. If you get to know who lived there, then you've got a better chance of maybe communicating with them on their kind of level sort of thing. But basic stuff. I've seen teams go out and you think they're going to war with Iraq. The amount of stuff that they take out.
Yeah.
We've got a wee bag, just a wee rucksack thing, and it's got some REM pods, K2 meters, ping pong balls, stuff like that. And I've got a laser grid, and that's all the tech that we use. We use
all the years I've been doing it, my favourite piece of kit is still, I like to douse with a glass. Basically, I don't use a Ouija board as stuff, although I've got a Ouija board, but it's cards. It's like a pack of cards. So what I'll do is put a glass down, and a few of us will put our fingers around it, and we'll call out and say to the spirit or whatever, if you're here, can you move the glass anywhere you like? And a lot of times you sit there I say to them, you've got to give it at least 10 minutes. There are occasions where it moves straight away, and there are occasions where it doesn't move at all. So to me, that suggests that, you've either got somebody there that wants to talk to you or something that isn't. And if it is moving about the glass, I will then put down the yes and the no card and basically say, if you understand me, I've put a card here and I point to it, yes, card here, no. This is when the glass is moving. Can you understand me? If you can, move the glass to the yes, and you can go from there. I can, if I want to be, if it's going really, really well, I can put all the letters around and you can start spelling names and stuff like that. But I think you really have to decide what you want from going paranormal investigating. Do you want to go out with some mates and run around with torches and that and have a good time? Do you want to go out and prove to the world that the paranormal exists? I'm somewhere between those two extremes. I many years ago, it used to really get on my nerves when people would turn around to me and they would say, going ghost hunting, you don't believe in that shit, do you? It's rubbish. Load of rubbish. You're half sharp, to go out thinking there's ghosts and stuff like that. That used to be quite sort of offensive in a way, because they knew me as a person and knew that I was sensible. So, and what I'd probably end up doing, I don't know if, have you ever heard of the Ministry of Deliverance? Is that something that anybody's heard?
I've never heard it, no.
Okay. Well, here's a scoop for you. Every Church of England in this country, every bishop that's scattered around the country has got a man working for him who deals with spirits, possessions and stuff like that. And it's called the Ministry of Deliverance. And if you Google Ministry of Deliverance, ours in Cambridgeshire is in Ely. But the way it works is, if, say, you've got a problem in your house and you've got a spirit there that's causing you problems, ghost, whatever you want to call it, and it's really a problem, and you probably get referred to your local vicar, local clergyman, and he will come in and look into it. And basically what he will do, he will decide, is Scott a nutter or has he really got a problem here?
I think some people would go with option A on that one.
Well, what they do, they then, if he's satisfied that you have got, some paranormal problem in your property or your life, he will go to the bishop, the local bishop for you, the area where you live, and then the bishop will normally make a reference to the Ministry of Deliverance. So if you can remember that and you Google Ministry of Deliverance, for Cambridgeshire, where I live, there's a place called Ely, not too far away, Ely, and that's where the Ministry of Deliverance is for. This will tell you. I can't remember the wording now, but it literally says, if you've got a problem in your house of this nature, haunting, paranormal stuff like that, then the Bishop of Ely will have at least one person who is trained expertly to come to your house or help you with that. So you have to ask yourself, Scott, is if the church has been doing that for years and years and years, which it has, not very many people know this, suggests to me there might be something out there that the people who say there's no such thing as ghosts, are looking a bit silly.
I'll put these comments up there. I'll come back to what you were just saying. I've heard people in the paranormal forget the basic sight sounds. Well, I can relate to that. Loud and cut. The one time we were investigating with Spinker team for Glasgow, and three different times, I get the smell of perfume. None of the girls there had perfume on, but it was way months later. I was talking to the friends of Loud and Cut, a society who look after the actual yard, and I was telling this to the lady, and she was saying that there was another two ladies that had this exact same experience. They smoked. They smelled a strong smell, a perfume, round about the crypt where Sarah and I get married. It's the crypt of the Campbell family. And they had the same experience as well, the smell, which we could not explain. Craig says, don't trust Ouija. I don't know, I'm 50-50. We don't do the Ouija board. No disrespect to people who do. We, I don't know, as Craig says, with fingers on the glass, I have to tell if somebody's moving it, or if they're not moving it.
Back to what Underwood told me, who do you take on? What do you take on paranormal investigations? People you can trust. Trust is huge.
That is important. You've got to, if you've got a team, you've got to have people. I mean, there's 4 of us, in the team, and Laura's daughter comes out occasionally, Sarah's brother comes out occasionally, but the four, we can trust each other to go to a location, and we know that we're not going to, fake something or, whatever, make a noise, whatever.
No.
That if we do get something, then it is genuine, and we only associate. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of cabbages out there, we only kind of try and associate with people who we know are genuine, that we can take on investigations, and we know they're not going to be idiots, basically. But just getting back to what you were saying, Mark, about, these people who say, oh, it doesn't exist, ghosts don't exist, blah, blah, blah. My dad was like that, God rest him. He was like, oh no, when you did your deed, that's it, lights out, you're gone, done, you're in the ground, whatever. But there's way too much evidence out there. I'm not just talking about in the UK, I'm talking about worldwide, and not just in recent years. You can get back 10, 20, 100, 200, whatever. There's too much documented evidence out there for people to say, no, it doesn't exist. And I think everybody, you like yourself, Laura, we've all had an experience in life that we cannot explain.
Yeah. I think that, I think it's one of those subjects, Scott, where say you've got a best friend, and he's your best friend, and you'd trust him with your life. I think if you go to a best friend and say, oh, I've just seen a ghost in there, they will doubt you. And the thing that I think makes people aware is when they have an experience themselves. When you've actually, somebody saying, even your best friend who you trust implicitly, there's always an element of doubt. But when actually you experience something yourself, and you go through this sort of rigorous process. I've seen a lot of people, and they have something happen, and they go, oh, we've got a ghost, blah blah blah, and stuff like that. And I thought, hold on, analyze what has just happened. And if you do, I'm pretty sure you'll find it. I went to an investigation a few years back at a place called Ramsey Rural Museum. It's actually built on the land that Ramsey Abbey was that I spoke of earlier. And there was all a big kerfuffle because they were in quite a large barn, and they felt they had a poltergeist that was throwing stones. And I just walked in there and I knew straight away that it was bogus. Someone was, for whatever reason, having a laugh. The lights are all off, it's pitch black, and they've got some stones and they're chucking them in the air and stuff like that. And I secretly put a night vision camera in there and caught that it was a woman actually who was doing it, and I saw her doing it. So I didn't say anything. I didn't want to embarrass her. I went into this room and I had a small stone, and I put it on my fingernail, my thumbnail. And so, you know, you flick your thumb like that. So I had this stone on there. The lights were off, and I went through this bogus rigmarole. You know, if you're in here, spirit, we know you're in here. You've been in here doing this all night. Can you throw a stone now? And at the sort of time I did that, I flicked this stone up in the air. Probably went up a couple of yards. And of course, it came down and hit the concrete floor, and everybody went, oh, you know, all the lights were off. And I said something to her, I can't remember, but I took her outside and sort of politely said, we've caught you on camera doing this. Now, I would suggest you leave, or I'm going to tell everybody what you're doing and, you know, throw you to the wolves if you like. And she got...
that's quite right. Just, I mean, two things you say on that. I'm Scott's best friend, and I can tell him anything, and he usually looks at me like I'm mad. Well, that's true. Sometimes Laura will come out with just random stuff. Well, we all do at times, I suppose. But he questions Anna, and then fives an opinion. I don't know what that means. That might be fires an opinion.
That'll be fine.
That makes me feel like I'm wrong. You need to be open-minded. Just what you're saying, Mark, you know, something makes it like, oh, that's a ghost. But if you're in an investigation and you hear something, you know, rather than just jump in there and say, oh yeah, we've found a spirit, blah, I think you need to take a step back and say, right, we heard the noise. What did you hear? Let's have a look about. I mean, there was one night Craig and I did Loud and Kirk, and we heard this, I can only describe as a metal clang, you know, and there was nothing. There was nothing. We went hunting, we went looking, and there was nothing that could have made that noise. It was all trees and wood and grass and stuff. But yeah, well, all right, we definitely heard that. But we didn't say, oh, that's paranormal. Do you know what I mean? Yippee. We thought, well, we can't explain that noise. You know, but I think you need to take a step back and think, right, okay, we heard that, let's go. I mean, a prime example is a couple of years ago, there was an abandoned power station near here with a guy. I haven't seen him since, but him and I were investigating, and there's 3 stories in this place. And we were outside, the only place you can get a signal is outside. So we were outside doing a wee live, and we could hear this. It sounded like a tapping sound. Now, there was nobody else there, and we thought, what the hell is that? So he was saying, oh, you know, it must be spirit contacting us, whatever. I went looking. I thought, right, I'm going to go and have a wee wander here. And I was just through in the kind of next room for where we were. It was like corrugated iron. I don't know if you still get it. It was corrugated iron. It was lying on the floor, and it was drips of water coming down, and they were hitting this bit of metal. Yeah. And it was kind of echoing a wee bit. So I mean, I says it's drips of water that's making that noise. It's no spirit or nothing, you know. But no, you're right. You do need to sort of analyse what's going on and stuff like that. You know, there's too many people these days jump on the parawagon, as I call it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think that people, you know, some people are, like I said, you've got to investigate what's happened, like a policeman would investigate a crime. If you do it in that detail and take all the details and say, well, could it have been this? No, definitely couldn't have been that. So we've debunked that possibility. Then you go and work through it. It is, as the name suggests, a paranormal investigation, and that's how you got to.
Do you think these days, I'm not going to name any names, obviously, but do you think these days it's a kind of ego thing? People go, individuals go investigating and they're hell-bent on getting a spirit, ghost, whatever you want to call it. I prefer to use the word spirit. They're hell-bent just so that they can look good.
Yeah, so
to be honest,
to be honest, Scott, all the years I've been doing it, in 70s and 80s, the paranormal world has always been full of people that have got they'll do all sorts of stuff, and it's basically, in most cases, there's a reason for it, and it's money, or secondly, it's ego, and in probably most cases, it's both. And you do have people as well that get a warped thrill out of being in a dark room with a group of people and making something appear paranormal when it's not, just for the sort of laugh, if you like, of saying, oh, that fooled them, there was 10 in there, thought there was a ghost in there, and it was me all the time. And like I said, that happened with that lady at Ramsey. I put a nighttime vision camera because we had a pretty good idea of where the stones were being thrown from. And sure enough, she'd got a pocket full of stones in her jeans and was just sort of tossing them into the air. Of course, the night vision camera called her out. But what would she have got out of that? The only thing that she could have got is the sort of amusement, if you like, of fooling everybody else in there.
She's misleading everybody crazy. I remember it was strange, but some people too quick to say paranormal. Paranormal, I think it's getting an integral part of the investigation. It is. I know what you mean, Mark. Seem to get a thrill with everybody in there thinking, oh, something's going on. I mean, we can all have a joke and a laugh on an investigation. I've done it myself, there was one a couple of years ago, Laura and I did a cut walk. We went to two different courtyards. I went down Loudon, and then we went to the next one. Laura went in herself and did a walk room. Well, she didn't know I was in the. After she went in, I went into the courtyard and was following her room just to make sure she was all right, basically. But I decided just to give her a wee fright. Laura's in the chat, she'll probably remember us. And it was, I just kind of appeared out of nowhere and kind of, wow. Yeah. And she kind of nearly hit the treetops. But that was just a laugh and a joke, so there is time where you can have a wee laugh and we do, no doubt you've done it yourself in investigations, we'll have a laugh and a joke with the spirits, I think it helps bring them.
Well, I mean, let's be frank, a lot of time, nothing happens at all. So what we tend to do as a group is we'll sort of have a laugh and a joke in those quiet times. And funny enough, I don't know whether it's the talk and the chatter, but sometimes that seems to stimulate activity, something that I've noticed.
I've got a theory about that, but Laura's got a question for you first, and then I've got a theory about what you just said. Do you think the paranormal field is better now or worse than it was 50 years ago, and why?
It was, I don't know, better or worse. It was certainly more sort of secretive in those early years. Now everybody's doing it. I'm not a lover of tech, so I don't like to use a lot of techie gadgets, but probably that's because of who I was trained by Underwood and stuff, and that sort of stuff wasn't around, and it's worked for me. So I just think that now with techie stuff, we're living in a world where there's Wi-Fi, there's 5G, there's signals bouncing about from everywhere. So if you're relying on something an electronic device, there's always the possibility that it's picking up a corrupt signal. So I always say to people, if you are um, picking up somebody and communicating with what you believe to be a spirit, make sure you ask questions and record information that can be checked. And
Mm.
in most cases, if you're dealing with something old, I'm talking ancestry websites and probably census reports. So if you communicate with someone and you get their name and their date of birth, whether they were married, whether they had any children, what they did for a living, a census report and an ancestry website is likely to be able to tell you whether what you've got in the way of answers is true. But a lot of people ask really nondescript things, and were you murdered and stuff like that, and they go off on a bit of a tangent, and they a lot of times don't ask questions that actually can be verified later after the investigation. But it depends what you want, Scott, because some people are not interested. They want to go and have a bit of spooky fun, play around with lights, and just have a laugh. And there's other people who want to try and connect with spirits, but they're not really interested in going home then next day and investigating the answers that they got to see if they're right. And they're not really. Some people are, is your goal to prove to the world that the paranormal exists?
Well, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right, because I mean, just I'll come back to that. I'll come back to my theory in a wee minute. What you're saying there, Mark, what Laura was asking, you're totally right. There are people out there that just want to go out and have a laugh. That's it.
Yeah.
Do an hour or two investigation of the graveyard, go home, say, oh, well, that was fun or whatever. But I think we're not, same as yourself, we're not to prove the paranormal's real or to shove it down people's throats. But I think it's important that if you do connect with spirit, I mean, Hinchinbrook House would be a perfect example for you. No doubt it's there's loads of spirits there that know you, because you've been there that many, many years. But I think if you get a location and you get contact with spirit, then find out, because there's still people, even though they don't have a body, they are still people. Yeah. And if they're willing to give you, it might be snippets of information over a period of a year or whatever, then
this is
take the time.
Yeah, sorry, Scott. This is something else that's just popped into my head, which I think is quite important. A lot of people, when they go to do paranormal investigation, when I take them around Hinchinbrook, I say to them, do you want to know the haunted history? Do you want to know where the ghosts generally appear and what people see and stuff like that? And a lot of people, oh, no, we don't want to know that. Definitely don't want to know that. Well, Underwood taught me, he said, always research your location. Find out what's supposed to be haunting there and things like that. Because if you don't and you just go in there cold, something might happen which you dismiss as nothing. But if you actually know the history, it might be very, very important. So, a lot of people sometimes think, well, if I know it's haunted by a monk, I'll see a monk in there. Well, if you've got sort of other people with you, they'll verify, no, I didn't see anything. What were you seeing? There was nothing there. So I think it's useful to go into a haunted place as armed as you possibly can, knowing the history, knowing what's supposed to haunt there, and knowing as much information as you can. And then obviously, as I said, if you don't know that, there might be something that you consider to be fairly insignificant. And when you actually find out the information, it's actually very significant. But you weren't looking for that because you didn't know about it.
When we did Caldwell dates back to the 1720, 1723. The date's kind of disputed when it was actually built. But when we did 2 months there, and we did numerous investigations, and we got a ton of activity, and we knew the kind of basics going on, because obviously we have a lot of history on Google or wherever, about this place, but we were getting snippets of information with names and stuff, and we were able to go after the investigation and check out, right, well, that's legitimate. And so it gave us something to work on. Same as Loudon, gave us something to, when we went back again, we say, well, is this Robert Muir? We met Robert Muir before. Are you still here, Robert?
Yeah.
And it helped us. But I just jump back to what you're saying about, with your own investigation and you're talking amongst yourselves, then you use your activity. Do you think this has happened to us a couple of times? Do you think maybe that happened because spirit feels like they're being ignored?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, like I said, we've been on an investigation and it's absolutely dead, absolutely nothing. And, we're starting to get bored. And so we'll start sort of chatting amongst ourselves, maybe a bit jovial. And then something happens. I don't know whether it's because we're trying to get them to speak to us and they're sort of saying, I'm not going to speak to you. I'm not going to give you that satisfaction sort of thing. And then when we ignore them and start talking amongst ourselves, it's sort of like they say, well, I'll show you, and something happens.
I totally agree. There was one night we were at Loudon with Spig, Laura, and I think Craig was there, Sarah was there as well. And we'd been there for a couple of hours and we were getting nothing. So Rigger, was our lead investigator, Spig, says, right, well, we're just going to pack up. This was about 9 o'clock or something. We're just going to pack up and we're going to go home. Thanks very much, anyway, Spirit, And it was after that we started to get activity.
Yeah.
So we were joking amongst ourselves, or they think we threatened them, we're going home. And we start, they weren't throwing headstones about or anything like that, but we were getting bits and pieces of activity. After we say, right, we're just going to pack up, going to go home, maybe come back again. And then K2s and that, we start to light up. Take Caldwell, Sarah and I. Sarah and Laura did an investigation. Caldwell, I wasn't wanted. I was told to go for a wander, basically. And they get quite a lot of activity, especially with children there as well. But I mean, moving on, one day I was saying this to Sarah earlier on. Now, we don't do tarot cards. We know people who do them, totally fine. I was on TikTok. I don't know if you've got TikTok, I know, Mark. But there seems to be a big upsurge in people doing tarot cards and stuff. There's one person, but I'm not going to name them, but they only came into about 4 months ago and suddenly they've got a gift.
Yeah.
They've got a gift and they've been out investigating and they've picked up all sorts of spirits, They did it at a location the other day I was watching, and they named these individuals that they picked up on. So I Googled the place and I found it within a minute, these names, What's your thoughts on that? It just seems to a big explosion in tarot cards.
Yeah,
no offense to everybody does them. There are genuine people out there that do them.
Yeah. You will know who I'm talking about with this, but I had an incident with a lady, and she came and did her first paranormal investigation with me and actually posted on Facebook. It was the first one she'd done. There was activity. She loved it, wanted to get involved and do some more. Anyway, 2 months later, I noticed on her Facebook page, she's saying she's a psychic medium and a psychic healer. Well, 2 months earlier, she'd never done a paranormal investigation or let alone anything like that. Now, all of a sudden, so you do get people that do that. And I call it the expert syndrome. You get some people, they come along, they do one investigation, and then suddenly, they've done that before, so they're an expert. Whereas, I've been doing it for 50 years and I don't consider myself anywhere near an expert. I've had a lot of experience.
As we say time and time again, there isn't any experts in this field. We've got ex-team members. I'm getting back about 3-4 years ago. Remember this as well. And there were normal team members with us. We were going out investigating, but then there was a big kind of hullabaloo, shall we say, and they left, formed their own team, and then overnight they all turned into mediums.
Yeah.
They went to bed on the Monday night and woke up on Tuesday morning.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen examples of that sort of thing. over those 50 years. You know, the people, and they're all of a sudden they're an expert and stuff. But,
do you believe we're all born? You know, this is what I believe, and say I might be wrong. Again, no expert, but we all know that children, you know, young children are more open to spirit and stuff like that than we are. Do you believe that we are all born with, I don't know if you want to call it a gift or the ability, you know, but as we grow up, you know, we get kind of programmed by society, by the modern world, and we kind of shut that side off. And it's only after we start getting back in to the paranormal, I think I spoke to you about this before, that barrier starts to kind of come down.
Yeah, I think it's more of a case. This is just my opinion of openness. When you're a child, you're very open. You believe fairy stories. You believe all sorts of things like that. And as you get a little bit older, you start to become an adult. On saying that, I've got a very good friend called June Allman, who's a very good psychic medium. She lives near St Ives, about 20 miles from me. And June has always said she's a very good psychic medium, but she's always said that we've all got that ability. It's just a case of learning how to use it. She said, I think some people have got the ability, they do it a bit more natural. Like you'll get somebody play football and they're a natural. They just do it easy. And other people, it's really hard. But the ability is there still. That was what her theory was. But there's most certainly a link with children and paranormal happenings and them being able to experience the paranormal, where us adults, I don't know, perhaps we're just, as you get adult, you get rational and you think that couldn't possibly have happened. Well, I've seen a lot of people, and they've actually turned around and said, one bloke was having a load of poltergeist activity in his house, and I was talking to him about it, and it was quite dramatic. There was things moving fair distances, and he said, it's just one of those things. When you think about it, it's not one of those things. You know, it's not everybody's house where, you know, something will move from one end of your living room to the other end. You'll go to bed and it's at this end, and then, you know, something like a chair is at the other end of the room. Either somebody in the house has got up and moved that, or you've had a burglar come in and done it, or what other possibility is there? So again, if you sort of debunk, well, there's only me in the house and I didn't do it, and there's no chance, there's no sign of any break-in and that, so burglar didn't do it. So then you're starting to think it might possibly have a paranormal explanation.
That has happened to me on 2 or 3 occasions. I'll tell you about one, just a comment I put up to Laura in a wee second. When I don't know if I've told you this, but I used to love myself, no flat, and I was a creature of habit, you know. I think I learned it off my dad, but every night with the TV, I turned the TV off and put the remote in front of the TV, right beside the TV, on the stand kind of thing. And I did it every night without even thinking about it, but there was one particular day I went in and I went to turn the TV on and the remote wasn't there. I thought, right, where's the remote? Now, I lived myself and nobody had been in. Where the hell's the remote? And hunted everywhere, I could not find it. And then it was later on, I was looking to my bedroom, and my bed was maybe a foot off the floor, maybe. And I saw this black thing underneath the bed, in the middle of the bed, underneath the floor. And I went in, and it was a TV remote. And I told people in the work about it, they said, you're talking crap, you know, you must have put it there. I said, why would I put my TV remote halfway underneath my bed and during the night? It just doesn't. And I couldn't explain that. Yeah. You know, I hunted everywhere and I thought where, and I'd say I loved myself. And then I thought, how did that get under there? But it was a comment of the tarot cards are used for introspection, personal growth guidance, helping users gain insight into the past, present. People need to remember and use them correctly. I mean, there are people, we know people out there that do tarot cards, and they are genuine, they are good at what they do. You know, I was talking about these people that all of a sudden just decide, right, I'm going to read tarot cards, and I'm going to be brilliant, and I'm psychic, but we do know, same as mediums, we know, we've been fortunate enough to be friends with 2 or 3 genuine mediums. They've got a proven track record, but so I'm not going to get into tarot cards because I don't know much about them, and I'm not one of these people starting going on about something I don't know anything about. But it's the whole paranormal thing is fascination. And as you were saying about some earlier on about people where something happened to them, but they don't tell anybody.
Yeah,
because of the stigma.
Yeah, they're frightened of getting called, "Oh, you're an idiot." What do you think? Never heard anything so ridiculous. That's what my mum said to me when I came home and said I'd seen a monk. She said, "Don't be so bloody stupid."
Yes. It's like, I mean, years and years ago, I started going to the spiritualist church in Glasgow. It was a guy I worked beside, his uncle ran one of them, and he says to me, do you want to come along? So, and other guys in the work found out that we were going to it turned into a regular thing. I never get any messages for about 2.5 years, something like that. But I still went, and people used to say, "You got that crap for, you're going to see ghosts that don't exist and what have you." I used to say, "Well, that's your belief. That's just fine. I respect that. You don't believe that." As I say, my dad, he was, God rest him, he was definitely, because my dad was told they had cancer and there was nothing they could do. So we used to laugh and joke about it. And I used to say, "You're going to come back and haunt me, you old ether," and stuff like that. And that's when he said, "No, sir." He says, "Well, that's your deeds. Your deeds, you're in the ground, lights out, gone." But then, funnily enough, a couple of years after he passed, he did actually come through. Do you know what I mean? I felt like saying, "I told you so, you old bugger," that there was something after, we leave here. But you're saying there's far too much evidence, to totally deny it.
The thing is, as well, Scott, is the evidence is quite credible. You've got people like members of the royal family. You've got people like celebrities who've got they're actually, by telling it, they're opening themselves up for ridicule. So they're not short of money, so they're not doing it for money. So, why would these people come out and say that their house is haunted or something like that when they're multimillionaires? They want a quiet life. It's just not right. But that's a big word in the paranormal: credibility. If you see a ghost, and like I did, there's always no one else was there, so there's doubt. My mind blew a little fuse, for 5 seconds or something like that. I know it didn't, which is why I persevered it. But that's what somebody will say. Somebody will say, come up with some reason as to, why it's not right. So if you get a room full of people and they all see a ghost, that happened quite not far from me, about 12 miles, is Kimbolton Castle. Kimbolton Castle is where Catherine of Aragon died, 7th of January 1536. During the Second World War, all these big places like that were taken over by the army. I think it was the Royal Medical Corps at Kimbolton. And the best sighting of her, there was upwards to nearly 20 men witnessed her apparition. So, that's a pretty credible story, because unless there's a huge amounts of money involved to bribe all those 20 men to say you saw this, blah, 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 and we'll give you the money. Why else would anybody make that up?
Exactly. They're not going to put their reputation or name on the line, because you say that these celebs, millionaires, etc., they're not getting into the game, and when you get a group of people, as I say, I think, I'm not sure, that wee girl at Loudon Cup, I don't know, 50-50, I'm not saying I did see it, I don't know. It might just be a trick of the mind, whatever you want to call it. But when as I said before, I've told this story before in Spig, And I says we did an old school in Glasgow, and we came out we used to be one of the old gym halls, and there was a Teddy's there, Laura was there, I think Sarah was there as well, and everybody heard this little girl say, it was either hiya or hello, clear as a bell, and everybody, there was about 10 of us there, everybody stopped, and we all turned round at the same time. I went, did you hear? And so everybody says what they heard. And it was, it was a little, clear as a bell, a little girl saying, it was hello. And we all just stopped. And it's when you get something like that, you think, well, how can you possibly debunk that? As you were saying about the 20 guys, so you can't debunk that. We're the same as you, debunk as much as possible.
I remember going to Arley Hall. Have you heard of Arley Hall?
Yeah, that's in your book, is it? No,
it's up in.
There's a place. There's one in your book starts with an A. We spoke about it on the phone.
Yeah, no, Arley Hall. I'll tell you how it's most famous. It was the house that was used in Peaky Blinders, the second series. I don't know if you watch Peaky Blinders, but
never watched it. No, never watched it.
Huge old house called Arley Hall. I went there because my family Egerton come from that neck of the woods, and Arley Hall was first built for a Roland Egerton Warburton. So I don't know whether it's any relation to me or not. I've tried to look it up, but I haven't got very far. Well, it's got a Gothic church in the grounds of the house, and when I was up there, there was a voice that by this Gothic church, there was a voice that people heard, not just me, and it clearly said Harold. And my father's name was Harold, and my grandfather's name was Harold. So, I sort of sparked up. It's it's got a few ghosts attached to it. The building, there's that church, or whatever you would call it. It's got a people have seen spirits in the church, and some people claim that they've photographed them. It's got an old man who has been seen there smoking a pipe, and there's been the smell of the tobacco as well. And there is, I'm trying to think what else was there. Oh, there's a little boy who's dressed in blue, who they call the blue boy. And the most interesting was when Peaky Blinders were filming there, they kept hearing a dog barking, but there was no dogs in the house. And they apparently spoke to the owners, and he said, "Oh, it's got a ghost of a dog here." This dog had apparently, in years gone by, attacked its master by mistake and killed him, thinking it was an intruder. A big dog, and killed the guy. And the gamekeeper immediately shot the dog, and the master that it killed and the dog were buried side by side, apparently. But they've heard this, not seen the dog, hear it barking, and they say it's been there for years. They can know where it's coming from.
I've got another question for you. I heard this. I was watching this individual again, and he's somebody with him the other day, and this guy, we've known this gentleman we've known of him, shall we say, for a few years, and he is into the paranormal and stuff, and he told, and I've never heard this, so I could have stayed up there, and I thought, I'm going to ask Mark. Now, it's said that we've all got a spirit guide, guardian angel, people with different names for them, There's always, sometimes it's a family member, an old friend, whoever. This individual says that everybody has 3 spirit guides. Everybody on the planet has 3 spirit guides. And I don't know enough about it. As you know yourself, the paranormal. Well, we're learning every day, Yeah.
To answer that question honestly, the general consensus is we've got a guardian angel. Whether we have or not, I don't know. But I have been told by 3 separate mediums that I've got 2. So, yeah, and they're both female, apparently. But I just found that strange that 3 different mediums who didn't know me have said, you know, we've all got a guardian angel. You've got 2, which is unusual. So, yeah, I don't know.
That is unusual, and it's quite. You're going to have to talk crap, but this I've told this many a time. This actually happened with the spiritual church when I get messages. The medium told me about my daughter, told me about my grandma. She told me about an ex-girlfriend who passed away, and this ex-girlfriend, she told me her name, where it happened, how it happened, and she passed away years before. Nobody knew me at this church or nothing. And she says, Alison, her name was, ex's name was Alison. She says, Alison wants you to know she's watching over you. So, you know, that kind of freaked me out. So a couple of weeks later, I went to a different church in a different part of Glasgow. And it was a young woman, a young girl who was doing the mediumship. And she came to me and she says, Alison wants you to know she's still watching over you. So obviously I started looking about for this other medium that I'd seen a few weeks ago, but she wasn't there. But I thought, when the lassie says she was, you know, she's still watching over you, I thought, well, is she my spirit guide? You know, Alison and I went out for, I don't know, about a year and a half, something like that. But what happened was her dad stayed, mum and dad split up here. Her dad moved to America. She didn't go with her stepdad, so she moved to America to live with her dad, basically. And she was driving home one night for work, so an asthma attack at the wheel. She tried to reach her inhaler, and she couldn't reach it, and she crashed, and she was killed, basically. Now, nobody knew this, you know, not a soul knew this. Yeah. But it's just when 2 different mediums said the same thing, then I started to think, well, maybe it's Alison, that, you know, that it's mine. But just when this guy says everybody's got 3, I thought, I've never heard of that in my puff. I've never heard of that in my life. Obviously, my son does. His father and mother passed when I was 8 months pregnant. Every picture of him was a blue orb or streak in it, and he does not like his photo taken. He's a non-believer, but I believe. I've seen the photos. But I do believe that there is somebody watching over us, you know, and maybe at different times guiding us through life. If we hit a major wall, you know, maybe they give us a wee nudge in the right direction, maybe. That's just my theory.
I was very skeptical about mediums always, and I know exactly when it was. It was 2015. I was on a paranormal investigation, and we picked up this spirit that was communicating with us through an EMF meter, as it happened, and we couldn't get a name or anything like that. And then we got an idea that it might possibly be my mum. And one of the girls on the investigation said, "Oh, you should go and see a medium." And I said, "Oh, I'm in all that, you know, mumbo jumbo and stuff like that." And she said, "No, you should." And anyway, I went to see this lady, this June Allman that I was talking about. I asked around first. That's what I say to anybody who's thinking of a medium, because I get asked a lot, you know, what can you recommend a medium to me? And I always say to them, you'd be best to talk amongst your friends and people who you trust, and you know, who've used mediums, and basically do it that way. But anyway, I went to have this see this June Allman, and I don't wear any rings on my fingers. I don't wear any jewelry, and I thought, I'm giving her absolutely no information about me. I'm going in with a real skeptic's head on, and we were going through there, and she uses cards. They're not tarot cards, but they are a type of card. And she said, "Oh, I've got a lady here with me," and she said, "I'm sure it's your mother." And she described this lady, you know, very much exactly as my mother, sort of height and everything like that. But she said, "Mark," she said, "the thing about her, which is so noticeable. He said, "Is her hands? I can see her hands. They're like that, all gnarled up, like the claws of a bird." That's how my mum's hands were. She'd had arthritis and stuff like that. And she went on telling me, she said, you're going to be writing a book. Now, this was before I'd even, it was just an idea in my head. I hadn't written a word, Scott. And she said, you're going to write a book. She said, not a Kindle. She said, it's going to be a proper book. And it's going to do well. So, carry on with that. And I thought, well, how the hell could she have known that? How could she have described? My mum died in, I think, 2007. So my mum had been dead nearly 10 years. My mum didn't use the internet. There was no ways that she could find out that sort of information. So and all of it is taped. A little CD. I've got it just in a drawer to the right of me. And she only projects 3 years ahead. So she'll give you a reading for 3 years, but no further. And I said, what do you get I said to her, what happens if you get someone here and you can tell that they're not going to be around in 6 months' time and stuff like that? She said, well, basically, I give them a reading, but I don't charge them. She said, and I don't actually say, I say, you're going to be experiencing some troubles, but doesn't say that you're going to end up.
I'd rather say you're going to pop it.
Yeah.
But no, I know exactly what you mean, Mark. It's when you get, when a medium gives you specific details that nobody else on the planet could know.
Yes.
And I mean, let's face it. Everybody can describe your granny. I've got a wee elderly lady, grey hair, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Could be anybody's granny, but this medium I seen did it with me. She's got a wee small elderly lady, grey hair. She's handing me a rose. Can you take the rose? I thought, that doesn't mean anything. But then she's doing this with her hands, doing it at her waist, doing it at her belly kind of thing, and she'll recognise you like this. And it was my grandma used to untie and tie her apron constantly when she got up to, she went to bed, and it used to drive me and my brother nuts, insane. But we never told anybody this. It's just one of these wee quirks that my grandma had. But this medium says she's going this, doing it at her waist, says you'll recognise her. And nobody know, how could she know it? And the first thing she said to me was, you've got a daughter in spirit called Donna, and she's been sitting on your knee since you came in. Nobody knew me at that, church and all the rest of it. And there's, we lost Donna about 2-3 years prior to this, and it's not that I never spoke about it, but this was just a church I walked into random one night.
It all comes back again, Scott, to this word credibility. I'll give you a flip side of the coin of that. At Hinchinbrook, I don't know, it must have been 15 years ago, Derek Akora appeared. I know he's dead and stuff like that, but he appeared in the Performing Arts Theatre and gave a show. There was a girl to my left. She was a big lady. I would say she was at least a size 22, big. And he went all the way around the houses saying, I've got somebody's grandmother here. And, or grandfather, was it? I can't remember now. Anyway, he settled on this girl, and he was saying that, he was talking to her grandfather. She was there, and he says, he's telling me you like chocolate. And she said, oh, yes, I do. And not only that, you eat the whole bar. This girl's enormous. Most women like chocolate. So he was on a fairly safe bet. I could have come out with something like that. But the girl, bless her, was in tears. And I thought, this is just being a charlatan. I know he's dead and stuff like that, but it didn't feel credible to me at all.
No, I went to see him, actually, in Glasgow. Me and one of my workmates went to see him at the concert hall in Glasgow. And we were up the stairs, and he was down, and he was, I don't know, he was on for a couple of hours, whatever, and he never get one, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, obviously, but he never get one single thing right. the entire time.
Yeah.
He was going to people, no chance, no, that's right.
Yeah.
My mum's still alive, and all, whatever it was. But the whole night was just a disaster and a total waste. As I say, I don't want to speak out, but it was just, no, this guy's, this
There
guy's
was
a joke.
there was a black family there. Oh, there was about 15 of them, and he sort of started on them, and he was basically getting a lot of it right, really accurate. And then in the interval, I was queuing up for a drink behind this black family, and they follow him around. They'd followed him around the country. They'd lost their father, who they obviously loved, and they were sort of going for comfort. And of course, he's picking up, knowing that they're going to be there. He's picking up information that he's already been given by them.
He's picking up snippets. You read that, you see it on YouTube and all the rest of it. There's a lot of different tricks that mediums use to do their acting, to talk to people and all the rest of it, and there's quite a few out there that you see, if you go to YouTube and, fake mediums, expose whatever you want, and it brings you up, and I've watched quite a few of them, and you think, well, some of them get their staff to get, before their show starts, they'll get their staff to get people, the audience, to fill out cards, my name is blah, blah, blah. And all this information is passed back to this medium through an earpiece.
Yeah.
And unfortunately this goes back to the fake stuff and all the rest of these people make a blooming fortune.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Con everybody, but I've just noticed the time there, Mark. I'm going to wind it up there because time's moving on. So where can people get a hold of you and stuff? No physically.
Well, I've got a couple of Facebook pages which I can send you the link. There is a website, but I tend not to use it that much now. But I can send you the links to the. I've got a Facebook page for my book, which is all Huntingdonshire, and then there's another page called Haunted History, which goes all around the UK. Sometimes outside of the UK, but not very often. So I can send those to you.
We post Mark's stories. I try to post one a week. We're not stealing them, and we'll get Mark onto it so he can verify that I don't steal his stories. No. That I do have his permission to put up the stories on the page. Is that correct, Mark? I don't steal them.
Yeah, I mean, my view is when I research the information and write up the story, it's normally 300 to 600 words, and I normally try to put a lot of photographs with it. And, once I've posted it on my site, the people who follow it can see it. But, if anybody else wants to read it, then why not? It'd only just sit there doing nothing, wouldn't it?
Well, that's very true. So, but I'll keep a hold of you so we said after we come up with it. I go and give them a wee look up on Facebook, etc. Definitely, the guy knows his stuff. What is the name? The guy does know stuff. But we're going to wind it up there. We're next live on Sunday with my wee mate from Glasgow, who's now living in America, wee Willie Armstrong, and his lovely wife, Kat, Paranormal Exposures. Craig and I are going out tomorrow night for a Kirk walk. We're going to be heading to Alloway Kirk, which is famous for the Burns story of Tam O'Shanter, and also Burns's father and daughter are also buried there. So we're going to be doing a wee Facebook Live on that tomorrow night. But a big thanks again to Mark. You will be seeing him again, trust me. And thanks everybody who's watching, and enjoy the rest of your evening. What's left of it, that is. And we'll talk to you all very soon. So take care. Cheers.
Don't forget to look up the Ministry of Deliverance.
I've got it written down, Barry. I don't usually write stuff down.
Yeah.
I've always farting about my pen, but I do have it written down. I'm going to give it a wee Google. You know what I mean? So cheers, everybody. Thanks. Bye.
Okay.